As a parent, if you've watched your once full of life teenager suddenly become withdrawn, overwhelmed, struggling with anxiety or depression, it can be really heart wrenching, especially if you've tried different therapies, different medications, different supplements, different sleep routines, and you see your kiddo still struggling. If so, I want you to know that there are different options out there, and that's what I want to discuss in this video. The CDC recently has released a study that up to 44% of teens actually struggle with mental health challenges, from sadness to hopelessness. And this is one of these epidemics that is really hitting hard here in the US. In fact, 1 in 3 teenage girls report having seriously contemplated suicide, nearly twice the rate of boys. And while girls are affected, I know men and boys are too. Just 2 weeks ago at the golf course I'm part of, a young man died of suicide. And in his 30s, he left behind a wife and a 2-year-old boy. And it's incredibly heart wrenching to hear this turmoil that was built up in his body, and yet he didn't have someone to talk to, or he didn't have the support system to really help his nervous system shift, to help his mood and his emotions be expressed and get out of that hole he felt he was in. So I know it can hit hard for parents and families at home. And in this video, I'm not saying I have the solution for anxiety or depression. It's not something we treat in our office. I don't have the solution for suicide. But I do know that when a nervous system is stuck in chronic stress, it can be depleting. It can be overwhelming. It can feel like you're never going to get out of that hole. And that's what I want to discuss in this video, to give you understanding different than the chemical imbalance theory. Because if you've talked to your provider, you've likely heard of their chemicals are just out of balance. They have more stress hormones, not enough feel-good hormones. And while that might be part of the picture, there's often a deeper root happening underneath that is leading to a chemical imbalance in the first place. So before I dive into that, I have a couple stats up here that I'm bringing up on my screen. But what they have seen when they've done studies is that between 2011 and 2012, the incidence of teen and mental health issues among youth has actually doubled, a tremendous increase. In females, we've seen more than males. They're more than twice as likely to experience anxiety and depression. So here's the thing: we have seen improvement. There's less teen drinking, there's less teen pregnancy, but this mental health crisis is really overwhelming. Some contribute it to, if you go back to 2012 when smartphones really started to increase, we have social media concerns. All these are contributing factors. And one of the things that I find is often overlooked is, how is your child's nervous system doing? Because if your child's nervous system has been stuck in stress, especially from early on, what we see is the nervous system, this stress starts to build, and two things happen. One, they become stuck in this state of anxiety and worry and concern. And two, it starts to deplete them. It starts to deplete their energy, because if we have adrenal fatigue, if our stress system has been on for so long, we start to lose energy. If we start to lose energy, we start to become less motivated. The things that once interested us, maybe it's sports, maybe it's music, maybe it's hanging out with friends, they're suddenly not so interesting anymore, simply because we don't have the energy to really enjoy them and partake in them. I know for myself, a mild example here, but if I'm drinking coffee steadily, I'll hit this point where suddenly I'm sleeping in way later than ever. I can't get out of bed. I keep hitting snooze. I get to the end of the day and I get home and I'm just completely wiped, and I start to wonder, like, what's going on? And I have to look and say, oh, Tye, you've drinking coffee too steady, too much, too frequent. And that surge of caffeine surges my body with stress, and it depletes my system of energy. So that's a mild example of this experience, because what I find then is if I get off coffee for a couple of days, suddenly I start to pick back up. I get more energy, I get more focus, I get more motivation, I get to start doing the things that I love to do again. So when we look at teen anxiety, teen depression from the nervous system standpoint, one of the most important nerves we see affected in our office has to do with the vagus nerve. And I'm going to explain why that is first. In a moment, I'm going to show you this scan here that we do in our office to help assess the vagus nerve. But before I do, I want to dive into what it actually is. You see, your child's nervous system, your nervous system, my kiddo's nervous system, they all have two main modes. Go, go, go stress mode, which is the sympathetic dominant fight flight mode. And then what's called the parasympathetic mode. This is the brake pedal where we come down from stress. It allows us to get good sleep. It allows us to energize and recover and feel motivated the next day. In order to go into brake pedal mode, your child needs a very active vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the main side of the brake pedal of the nervous system. And if we measure how the vagus nerve is doing, it's one of the key insights to seeing if your child's nervous system is overwhelmed, if it's stressed and run down and stuck in this state of fight flight so long that it started to deplete your kiddo's battery. So one of the keys to measure how your child's nervous system doing is this study here. We have 3 different examples on this screen, but what this scan is called heart rate variability. If you have an Aura Ring or a Whoop or a Garmin Apple Watch, these things do a simple form of this heart rate variability. And what it's looking at is how well someone's nervous system is responding to stress. You can see this white dot here. We want to see in the green. I'm going to bring this up so I can give a little better connection here. So this white dot we want to see up in the green. If things have drifted out of the green, it is showing that this person's battery is starting to wear down. So if you plug your phone into the charger at night and you wake up in the morning and it's only 50% charged, odds are it's not going to get through the day as well as you want it. And this is what we're measuring with this scan. If things are worn down, now your child's nervous system is starting the day on a half-charged battery. They're not going to have that motivation, that inspiration, that pep in their step to get out and do things. As we work with people, one of the things we start to do is help to regulate their nervous system. And ultimately, we want to see this white dot, as you can see here, drifting into the green. When that happens, we see a nervous system that suddenly starts to have more energy, to have more bandwidth, to be able to respond and handle the world and the day better. So the vagus nerve, where that comes in, is if your vagus nerve is off, if it can't activate, what happens is we stay in gas pedal, stuck in stress mode, and our tank, our battery drains more easily. When we start to use the vagus nerve to regulate the nervous system, we apply the brake pedal, and now we start to see the battery be able to charge back up. There is actually research that shows that lower vagus nerve activity, we call it vagal tone, is actually significantly linked to challenges in managing emotions, in dealing with stress, and having an increased sensitivity to stress. So basically what that means is if your child's vagus nerve isn't working well, they can't handle the stress of the world as well. So that's one of the things we love doing in our office is increasing your child's resiliency from within. So they're not relying on a medication. They're not relying on a certain breathing technique or their meditation app or eating the perfect diet or using the best essential oil every night before bed, but they start to build resiliency internally from within. If you find your child has early on stresses, this is one of the things that might have built up to where they're at today. A lot of times parents wonder, well, how is this happening? Why is it affecting my child's body? So if we go back early on, some of the things that we talk with parents about are, how was pregnancy? Was it really stressful early on? How was labor and delivery? If there was C-section, forceps, induction, vacuum extraction, a stalled labor, long labor, lots of pushing, hours of pushing as an example, all put a lot of pressure on an infant's delicate nervous system at the very top of their spine around their brainstem. And that's actually where the vagus nerve comes from. So if we see an early stress like that, you might find your child was colicky. they were refluxy, they didn't sleep well, they didn't nurse well. Maybe as a toddler, they had really big tantrums, really big emotions. Maybe they had sensory sensitivities. Maybe they struggled with not being able to focus or having big worries early on in life. Those are all clues that early on your child's nervous system was starting to rev up this stress response. And if it was stressed early and stressed often, now by the time they become a teenager, it makes sense that it's worn down and worn out. So, if you see some of the signs you might be looking for with your teen on the physical level, they might be sleep disturbances. Maybe you see they've lost their appetite, they don't have good digestion, they're always getting sick, they're always tired, exhausted, run down, even if they've slept till noon that day. On the emotional side, some of the things you might see are your child always worried, always irritable. Maybe they've lost interest, as I've mentioned before. These are signs that their nervous system is just on edge and it's wearing down. On the behavior side of things to look for are social withdrawal. Maybe their academic performance is starting to decline. Maybe they're really sensitive to criticism, where they used to kind of shrug things off, let it wash off their shoulder, but now they take everything really personally. Again, these are signs that their nervous system is starting to become dysregulated and run down. So if that resonates with your child, please know that there's hope, different than a medication, different than another outside intervention, but actually looking to the root of what might be causing your child's nervous system to feel so stressed, so run down, and so overwhelmed. So if that resonates, we'd love to help. We'd love to take a look. We'd love to see what your child's scans look like. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. Know we're here to support you, and know that we'd love to help your team get back on track.